GLP-1s, am I for them? Am I against them? What do I think? This is a question I get on a very regular basis, and I thought I would sit down and just record a video to talk about my thoughts because it's not a simple yes or no answer. So if you're new here, my name is Sarah. This is the Sarah Kleiner Wellness YouTube channel, as well as the Evolving Wellness podcast. I am board certified in applied quantum biology by the American Naturopathic Medical Board, as well as a certified nutrition coach with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I've also been working one-to-one with clients for a decade plus now, and all of the information I'm telling you in this video is from my experience clinically working with people one-to-one and in my private community. It's not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe GLP-1s. I don't tell people how to get them. I stay out of that whole thing because I'm not qualified to do that. So take what I say with a grain of salt. This is not medical advice, and I'm not a doctor. So I'm just somebody that works with quite a few people on lifestyle, nutrition, weight loss, health optimization, all of the above. So welcome. Now, this is not a sponsored episode, but I do have a quick deal I want to talk about for anybody who really likes low tox household items. I have just started in the last 6 months using Truly Free, and I was using Branch Basics, which I still think is a really fantastic brand for laundry detergent, dish detergent. And so I just recently switched over to Truly Free in the last 6 months. They are right now doing a really amazing bundle deal on their dishwashing detergent, which I hate to admit this, but we were using pods for a really long time, even though they were low tox pods. And what I didn't know is those pods were still leaving a plastic film on a lot of our dishes. So I love the Truly Free powdered dishwashing brand. It's low tox. It's about 27 cents a load, and that is free shipping. I'll put a link down in the show notes. If you are comparing it with Branch Basics, which is also a pod-free detergent, it's 37 cents a load, and you still have to pay for shipping on top of that. So this is a great deal. It's running through March the 31st. I'll put a link down in the show notes. Again, not a sponsored episode, but a really good deal. I just want to make sure my community knows about. All right. Let's talk about these GLP-1s. What do I think? Now, funny enough, I get accused of being on Ozempic probably every other week on Facebook. God bless Facebook. Instagram, nice people. YouTube, meh, sometimes nice, sometimes not. But a lot of that comes from Facebook. And no, I personally have not used Ozempic. And I actually really don't plan on it because at this point, I'm pretty optimized. I'm where I want to be. I feel good and I don't have issues because I've really dialed in my lifestyle, my nutrition, and I'm really happy with where I am. So I don't feel a need to try a GLP-1. However, I do want to say that, again, I'm not 100% against these, but the other reason why for me it's going to be a big no is because of what I have seen with some clients that's really, really concerning. Now, yes, I did have Dr. Tina Moore, Tyna Moore, on my podcast. Maybe it was about a year ago. And I love Dr. Tina. We are friends offline. We text every now and then. We talk on the phone every now and then. I really like her as a person. And she talks about all the amazing benefits of GLP-1s. And she really does a great job of breaking down the scientific evidence and the research. So if you want to dive into this topic more, I recommend following her and her work. However, there's a dark side to this. And getting back to the reason why for me, a GLP-1, I just would feel uncomfortable doing it is because what I've seen with a few clients is some serious GI issues that have come as a side effect from using these medications. Now, if you're going to use them, I would recommend, again, following Dr. Tina and not going the route of the Ozempic, the Wegovy, but more so looking at it as a microdosed peptide. Once you get over a certain level with these peptides, this is what I'm seeing with clients, there, especially tirzepatide, there can be GI disturbances that loose stools. One of my clients had a pretty serious gallbladder issue, and she just couldn't even keep food down to a certain point. Nausea. And a lot of people will say these things pass, but with a few of the clients I've worked with, they didn't pass. And they actually ended up developing worse gut issues until they eventually came off the drug. And so for me, I have a history of IBS and gut issues, which I've healed at this point. However, I'm still at a place where I just wouldn't want to mess up a good thing. right? My gut is in a good spot. And I've seen some of the gut side effects that a few of my clients have had. Again, this is just me talking as somebody who works with people, not pulling scientific papers, data, and research, and saying that I have talked to and work with people that have had the side effects, the GI side effects and the gallbladder issues. And it took some time of getting off of those drugs to unwind from this. I personally have not seen anyone with permanent damage from using the peptides microdosed and coming off of them and kind of reversing out of that. But we're still pretty new with these drugs. There's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot of people using them now, and there's a lot of people that love them, but there's still so much that we don't know. So if I have a client that comes to me for a consult and they're like, hey, I'm considering using a peptide. I really want to use a peptide. I'm going to ask them first off, do you have a history of gut issues? What's your gut health like? That's the number one question I'm going to ask them. And then two, I'm always going to say, I recommend that you work with somebody who's going to monitor you very, very regularly. Don't just buy these online and just do it DIY. I don't really think that's a great idea. Someone who can monitor you and microdose. And I'm talking not like like tiny, tiny small doses. That is what I tell people. And I don't prescribe them. It's always a client coming to me and saying, this is something I want to do. And I'll be quick to tell them, this is what I've seen on the negative side. So I always like to get the negative stuff out of the way. And then to answer the question, all of my friends on Facebook who keep accusing me of Ozempic, no, I'm not an Ozempic. I have really just dialed in my nutrition, my lifestyle, and I feel really good. So there's that. Now let's talk about some of the good things I have seen. There are some women in my community who have gone the route of the microdose peptide, and they say that their food noise is gone. They've struggled with addiction issues in the past, so alcoholism, drug use, and those voices have quieted down. There's a lot of reduced inflammation. There's better blood sugar control, blood sugar handling. And so I have seen positive things from people who microdose the peptides. That's, you want to work with someone, find someone to help you do this. And so that's my opinion on that. Again, I've seen a negative side to it, but I've also have seen people in my community, and there's a positive side to it. Either side of the coin, whatever you decide to do, what I think is extremely important is that you're going to have a lifestyle and a foundation built down at the bottom, because there are a ton of doctors that are spreading a lot of fear online about muscle loss, muscle wasting, all these other side effects. And the reason why I've seen that with clients is that they use the peptide, or they just go through their doctor and get the regular weight loss drugs, and they use it as a panacea. They don't change their diet. They don't change their lifestyle. They don't change the foundation. And so they just start eating less of the junk food that they were already eating. They're not eating enough protein. They're not weight training. They lose massive amounts of muscle. And this actually happened to one of my clients. And she came to me. This is one of the clients that was having all the major GI issues, like really bad GI issues. And so she had gone through this, lost a ton of muscle, lost a ton of weight, but had to come off of the drug. And she was rapidly gaining weight. So she had lost all of this weight, which a lot of it was muscle because it was very, very fast. She didn't have the nutrition. She didn't have the lifestyle. And she was just rapidly gaining fat, right? And she had lost muscle. And she had to go off the drug because she had the gut issue. So this is the situation that I think a lot of people are cautioning against, is this rapid weight loss without adding enough protein, without strength training, and without building a lifestyle. And there are things that you can do which are natural, quote unquote, GLP-1s. I'm not talking about supplements like berberine, which I think may have utility for some people, but sunlight in particular, I look at it as a natural GLP-1, because what UV light does in particular is stimulates a pathway called POMC and allows the body to produce something called alpha MSH, which is a natural appetite reducer and fat burner and inflammation reducer. So just by getting outside in the morning and getting adequate UV light, you're stimulating a natural GLP-1. Protein does something similar in the body with satiety. And so I think a really powerful thing for people to do if you're considering a GLP-1 is to really get honest with yourself. Am I eating enough protein? Is my lifestyle dialed in? Am I going outside in the morning for sunlight? Am I blocking blue light at night? Because, getting a ton of blue light exposure in your eyes after sunset is going to increase your insulin and increase your cortisol, even in the absence of food. So you could start to develop these appetite issues, these metabolic issues. And women, I hate to tell you, once we get into perimenopause and we start to have a natural shift in our hormones, such as estrogen, which makes us more insulin resistant when that change happens. And if you don't change your lifestyle and your light environment and these other sorts of things, it's kind of a recipe for weight gain and hormone chaos, right? So, ask yourself if you're thinking about doing these drugs, trying these drugs. And again, I'm not supporting it and I'm not necessarily condoning it either. I'm just trying to put out a statement of how I see both sides, that there's potentially some benefits for people, but there's also a really serious downside that people need to be aware of, because I think a lot of these doctors that are promoting it, and like I said, I'm close friends with some of them, they're not necessarily talking about these people that I like, the clients that I have had these really negative side effects. And so I just want to put that out there so people can have all the information and make their own decision. I'm all about informed consent on my show and just in my community and with people that I talk to on a daily basis. I, as a consumer, as a person, I want to have all the information before I make that decision on what I'm going to put in my body. And we don't get that. We don't get that in our standard medical model. And I see it not happening in the alternative model as well. Unfortunately, it can be just as bad on the other side of the fence. And you think you're working with an alternative doctor. So I'm getting all the facts, and you're not necessarily getting all the information. So my long-winded way of saying, do your own research and make the best decision for you based on that. And don't skimp on these really important free, mostly, things that you can do, like getting morning sunlight, blocking blue light after sunset, eating enough bioavailable protein, moving your body, getting out in sunlight, going walking. These things can go a really long way. And I have women in my community who are losing weight, who are feeling better, who are reversing thyroid conditions, reversing autoimmune conditions, and they're not using GLP-1s. They are not using any of these things, and they're having really great results. So know that you don't have to. Everyone's kind of putting this message out there that it's the wonder drug and it does everything. There are people in my community that I support that are doing the lifestyle stuff, and it's been helpful for them as well. So there's both sides to it. And I know I know everyone wants me to take a hard stance, but that's my opinion on it. Again, just my opinion. I'm not a doctor, not a medical doctor at all. And I just want you to know both sides. Now, the other question I get quite often is, what do I think about HRT? And that's going to be a separate episode because I'm still really mulling over how to answer that appropriately. I talk about this in my private community quite often, in my coaching community quite often, because the women there, some of them do use HRT and some of them are on it and don't want to be on it. And it's a topic that has a lot of nuance and requires a full discussion. So I know everyone wants me to take a hard line stance on things, but that will have to be for another episode. So if you're interested in that topic, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast or to the YouTube channel if you're watching there, and leave me a comment. What are your thoughts? I would love to start a dialogue. I'd love to know, what are your thoughts on these GLP-1s? Are we totally against them? Do we love them? Has it been life-changing for you? I'd love to hear. I really would love to hear. I'm always interested to continue conversations and talking to people, because I think that's really how we learn. You can be a researcher. There's a lot of researchers out there. There's a lot of doctors who don't actually practice, that give a lot of advice online, that have a lot of big followings, but they're not on a day-to-day basis talking with people and working with people. And all this great advice you give people online, who you don't see how it's going over in someone's day-to-day life. And so that's a word to anybody when you're consuming information online, when you're making decisions for you. to evaluate that information. Say, that's interesting. Where are they getting this from? Is it all the PubMed papers that they've pulled together and decided to draw a conclusion? Or is it from a sample size of clients or patients that they're getting that information? And so today, just to reiterate, the information that I am putting out there with the GLP-1s and the way I feel about them is, for me, it's a no because of my history with gut issues. And I just don't want to poke the bear in that respect. And I don't need it. I'm good. I'm very optimized and I feel good. And two, am I for it or against it with clients? I want them to make their own decision on that. I've seen really bad, but I've also seen some positive. And so I can't say yes or no. I just want people to keep doing their own research and making the best decision for themselves. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out that awesome dishwashing detergent deal down in the show notes if you're looking to stock up. This is a great deal. And if you enjoy the show, make sure you are subscribed, leave me a like, leave me a comment, and I look forward to talking with you on the next episode.